What's going on, everybody? Happy Juneteenth. Now, on Juneteenth, we often give credit to Abraham Lincoln for the Emancipation Proclamation, but I want to give more credit to a man that actually inspired Abraham Lincoln to write the Emancipation Proclamation, a black man named Robert Smalls. Say What History is going to get to all of these people and more, but today we are starting with Robert Smalls. So for us to have a conversation about Robert Smalls, we have to go to Charleston, South Carolina in the 1860s. So who was Robert Smalls? Robert Smalls was an enslaved black man who freed himself by escaping with a Confederate supply ship that he stole. In March of 1861, Smalls would find himself tasked with being part of the crew on a supply ship for the Confederate Army called the Planter. Over the course of several months, he would learn everything that he could about navigating with the Planter. He would not only make himself invaluable, he made sure that he was one of the only people that knew how to navigate the ship. That's going to be important later. Smalls noticed that after a while, they trusted him enough and were racist enough to leave him on the ship with his family whenever they had docked in Charleston. So on May 13th, 1862, while the white officers and crew had gone into town into Charleston to sleep for the night, the Planter was left with the enslaved. Smalls and a crew of 8 men, 5 women, and 3 children quietly slipped the Planter into the harbor. Smalls had to navigate all the way from this spot in Charleston all the way down here out into the main channel. That's where they were going. Something of note is that this would require Robert Smalls to navigate through 5 different checkpoints. Now, what were these checkpoints? They were all stations where they would have to give certain hand signals at certain times from different positions on the ship. And they also had to make sure that they didn't notice that there were no visible white people on the ships. But the crew was able to, with little effort, make it through all of those checkpoints straight out into the place where they needed to be. Now, I know you're probably asking yourself, what was the plan if they got caught? I mean, he was really good at this. He was able to make it through all of those checkpoints, but what if they didn't make it through the checkpoints? Well, that's where I want this to be turned into a Hollywood movie, because they rigged the ship with bombs. They created all of these different bombs and they rigged the ship so that what they would do is just patiently wait for the crews to board, and then they were just going to blow up the entire boat. But they didn't have to blow up the entire boat. They were able to make it to the Union. So not only did they steal a supply ship, which meant the Confederates were down a supply ship and the supplies on that ship, but they were also able to make it to the Union with the most intel that the Union had gotten at that moment. All of those hand signals and things that I told you before that were going to be very important. It was very important for the Union Army to know those as well. Smalls' actions would make it all the way to President Abraham Lincoln himself, who said that it was the most courageous thing that he had heard. And this encouraged 2 things to happen. It encouraged Abraham Lincoln to allow free black people to join the Union Army, but it also made him write up the Emancipation Proclamation. Robert Smalls inspired him because he was able to free himself with a crew of people. What if all the black people knew that they would be able to rise up and the Union Army would help them if they got their way there? So yes, the freeing of the slaves was just a political tactic. It's war games. It's very difficult for the Confederates to fight on 2 fronts. You have to fight the enemy from within, because now all of the black people around you are suddenly encouraged by the Union to just rise up against you, and you have to deal with the Union Army. The Confederate Army was getting stomped at that point. During the war, Smalls remained a spy for the Union Army, but after the war, he was elected to office. He served in both the South Carolina House of Representatives and the Senate. He served between 1874 and 1879. It is absolutely a fact that the aptitude and courage of people like Robert Smalls inspired Abraham Lincoln to see the value of black folk and encourage them to free themselves. He basically looked at Robert Smalls and went, I need 100 of him. Tactical and military prowess of the black people around the Union Army was the major factor in securing the win. If you want to call it that, it's a civil war. There's really no winners. But if you want to call it a win, that's where that came from. It shouldn't be lost on you that the detail of the Union Army that went to Galveston to do the moment that is Juneteenth, that is celebrated, where the Union Army came in and said, no, these people are free and you have to let them go or else. A lot of those guys were black. A lot of the details that went throughout the South to make sure that the Southerners were actually following the rules were black people. Thanks to the courageous actions of people like Robert Smalls, the United States did move in the direction of freeing the enslaved. We had everything set for 40 acres and a mule. We were already starting Reconstruction. And then I'm gonna have to make a video about Andrew Johnson. Happy Juneteenth, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of Say What History. I'll see you next time.